Hey everyone, I'm back with another update. In this episode, I'll cover the protest in Mexico City, immigration related news, the aftermath of the government shutdown, and Epstein updates. Of course, I'll end with the noteworthy tidbits. On the 15th, several thousand people gathered in Mexico City for a major protest organized under the banner of Generation Z Mexico, a nonpartisan youth led movement expressing frustration over escalating crime, corruption, impunity, and government inaction against organized crime. The demonstration was part of a nationwide wave of rallies in over 50 cities, sparked by the assassination of European Mayor Carlos Manzo on November 1st during a public Day of the Dead event. Manzo, a vocal anti cartel figure who had split from President Claudia Sheinbaum's Morena party, became a symbol for the protesters, many of whom wore straw hats in tribute and chanted slogans like Carlos did not die, the government killed him. The event began peacefully around midday at the Angel of Independence Monument in central Mexico City. Protesters, including youth, older opposition supporters, and Manzo's followers, marched through key streets toward the city's historic main square. Banners read, "We are all Carlos Manzo," and symbols like the one piece pirate flag, a global youth protest emblem, were prominent. By late afternoon, the crowd swelled near the National Palace, Scheinbaum's residence and office. A small group of hooded or masked demonstrators, referred to as the Black Bloc, dismantled metal barricades protecting the palace using stones, fireworks, sticks, chains, and hammers. This escalated into violent confrontations with riot police, who responded with tear gas, smoke bombs, and non lethal force. Protesters grabbed police shields and equipment, leading to chaotic scenes of charges and scuffles. At least 120 people were injured, with around 100 being police officers, 60 of which required hospital treatment for injuries like blows and exposure to irritants. About 20 protesters were hurt. Authorities arrested 20 individuals on charges including robbery, assault, and vandalism, and Mexico City's Security Secretary Pablo Vasquez reported the violence as unrepresentative of the broader march. President Sheinbaum, who is accused of being bought out by the cartels, condemned the violence in a statement and emphasized no to violence while defending her administration's anti-crime efforts. On to immigration-related news. Labor Secretary Lori Chavez de Remer announced there will be an end to the H-1B visa fraud, ensuring Americans get the jobs first, saying, "Almost 200 investigations now have been brought forward. There are companies who are using the H-1 visa program who are abusing the program. And we want to make sure we're providing the skilled workforce so that Americans have these jobs first and foremost." Canada has vowed to take H-1B visa holders away from the United States, investing $1.7 billion into the program. The Transportation Department has forced California into revoking 17,000 commercial driver's licenses from foreigners, with Secretary Duffy saying he will pull $160 million in federal funds if California doesn't revoke every illegally issued CDL. A DMV employee was caught taking $3,000 payments in exchange for taking the CDL exam for illegal aliens. She used disguises to make herself look like a different person each time she took the exam. It's being reported that President Trump and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem are considering deploying special ops equipped with armored vehicles to Charlotte and New Orleans to round up illegals, and federal agents have now arrived in Charlotte. Border Commander Greg Bovino rallied his men, arresting over 75 illegals in less than a day, with one raid being at a Home Depot. Some local Charlotte Democrats are furious over this and have resorted to harassing Bovino and organizing protests. Protests around the Chicago area ICE facility continue to turn violent, with 6 protesters being arrested for blocking and shoving federal agents. One protester even accosted a CBS reporter live on air. On the flip side, residents in Mequon, Wisconsin were advised to heighten security because an illegal alien South American crime ring is committing burglaries and home invasions in the area. ICE continues to track the 450,000 unaccompanied children trafficked into the United States under the Biden administration, with the intention of reuniting the children with their families. And for comparison, there were over 302,000 migrant crossings at the Darien Gap in 2024 and under 3,000 in 2025 so far, so crossings are still down 99% of what they were only 1 year ago. Let's switch to the aftermath of the government shutdown. House Speaker Mike Johnson is refusing to allow a vote on extending the broken Obamacare subsidies because it's unaffordable and has failed the American people, doing exactly the opposite of what was promised that Obamacare would do. Congressman Andy Biggs created legislation to repeal the Affordable Care Act, and he has the support of quite a few people, including President Trump. Senator John Kennedy is pushing to ban members of Congress from being paid during a government shutdown to help ensure this never happens again. And Speaker Johnson is working to ensure the military, air traffic control, TSA, and essential services are funded fully by January. In good news, the FAA lowered flight restrictions in half from 6% to 3%. Shifting to the Epstein updates. President Trump said Democrats should stop wasting their time with Trump on Epstein and instead should ask Bill Clinton and others about Epstein. Trump ordered the Department of Justice and FBI to investigate Epstein's relationship and involvement with Bill Clinton, J.P. Morgan, Chase, and many other people and institutions, claiming they were on Epstein's island and implying they were the ones engaged in criminal activity. It was exposed that Epstein was texting Stacey Plaskett, a Democrat non-voting delegate representing the U.S. Virgin Islands in the House of Representatives, during a 2019 hearing while they questioned President Trump's former attorney. It appears Epstein may have been coaching Plaskett, which provides evidence to the new theory that Epstein was working with people to take down Trump in 2019. Epstein was also communicating with Michael Wolff, the New York Times, and the House Oversight Democrats around the same time. Now it's time for the noteworthy tidbits, which are brought to you today by Big Fork Brands. Let me tell you about them quick. Sometimes I get on a roll cleaning or gardening, and I need a boost but don't have time for a meal. Big Fork Brand's pork jerky is the perfect choice to keep my momentum, offering high-protein snacks for on-the-go energy boosts. Not only do they offer pork jerky, but they also make pork sticks, bacon sausage, bacon hot dogs, and burger and hot dog sauces. Products come in a variety of delicious flavors, including Thai green curry and maple and brown sugar for the meat options, and gangster and Chicago fire for the sauces. I personally think the original flavor of the pork jerky hits just right after tackling a big chore. It's a little salty and very flavorful. My discount code gives you 20% off your entire order, and it's currently the best deal available. Just visit bigforkbrands.com and enter in my promo code JADE, that's JADE, at checkout. All right, let's get back to the tidbits. Speaker Johnson is pushing to revoke the new law that gives GOP senators $500,000 of taxpayer funds because Jack Smith and the Biden FBI violated their rights, with Johnson saying, to let them cash in, it's just a bad look. I think many of them regret it. He also explained that the optics of it are terrible, and that although Arctic frost was a horrific abuse, sitting lawmakers shouldn't vote for themselves to cash in on something like that. President Trump is suing the BBC for up to $5 billion for deceptively editing his January 6th speech. Congressman Eric Swalwell is claiming that the new mortgage fraud allegations the Department of Justice plans to release next week will be false, and MSNBC is reporting that Swalwell is planning to run for governor of California. President Trump withdrew his nomination of Donald Korb to be Assistant General Counsel in the Department of the Treasury, and he nominated Brian Lee to serve as judge on the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Tennessee, Megan Benton to serve as judge on the U.S. District Court for the Western District of Missouri, and Justin Olson to serve as judge on the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Indiana. Trump also withdrew his endorsement of Marjorie Taylor Greene in a very ugly and public spat that I'm going to choose not to cover because, frankly, it's childish and embarrassing. Trump also chose to say some very disgusting things about Thomas Massie on the same day, so I don't know if he needs a nap or what's going on, but hopefully he got some rest this weekend and is in a better headspace now. U.S. Catholic bishops voted to ban transgender medical operations at Catholic hospitals. President Trump opened half of the state of Alaska's untouched oil reserves for drilling, ending a Biden-era restriction. A Fulton County judge dropped 3 charges in the Georgia 2020 election interference case against President Trump and others. This case was formerly led by Fani Willis. Indiana state Republicans chose not to redraw the 2026 congressional map due to lack of support, meaning that the additional 2 Republican seats are off the table. The Republicans who did not support the redrawing are receiving backlash, and Trump's team has begun summoning Indiana lawmakers to ensure the redistricting moves forward. President Trump confirmed a massive lawsuit against Gavin Newsom is coming because California sends out, in Trump's words, tens of millions of ballots. Many people get 2 and 3 ballots. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. said he has been directed by President Trump to address the root cause of obesity, such as encouraging whole food consumption by reducing the price of meat and creating programs to encourage people to engage in physical activity. President Trump's approval rating on his 300th day of his second term is higher than that of Obama and George W. Bush at this point in their second terms. HUD Secretary Scott Turner confirmed plans to reduce the price of housing through cutting regulations, surging supply, and deporting illegals, and he said the Trump administration will be working with local developers to determine which regulations to cut. The man who ambushed U.S. Attorney Alina Habba with a baseball bat has been arrested. California Governor Gavin Newsom and LA Mayor Karen Bass are facing harsh criticism after it was confirmed that 75% of Palisades fire victims still live in temporary housing. National Guardsmen and local police were sent to enforce the juvenile curfew in the Navy Yard neighborhood in Washington, D.C., after reports of youths plotting a takeover in the area again. The national Christmas tree has arrived at the White House ellipse, and crews were spotted adding the star and lights. Senator John Fetterman is back home after being hospitalized due to a fall. He sent out a message saying, 20 stitches later and a full recovery, I'm back home. I'm overwhelmed and profoundly grateful for all the well wishes. Truly. And see you back in D.C. Lastly, over 3,000 Charlie Kirk Freedom shirts were handed out at Madison Square Garden for UFC 322. That's all I have for today. I'll be back with another update soon. Until then, please like, subscribe, and share this podcast, and follow me on Instagram and X at Shades of Jade Pod. Thank you for listening and have a great day.